Hey, great day, you dynamic viewers of the Gathering of the Griots show. What's up? It's Asada, and we're here on another Tuesday to do what we do with Black writers. Today, I love who we have. This sister is about the business of the continent. Her name is Rakina White. Be ready for it. But before we begin, let me give you a little bit about the female solution, because that's what we're here under. That's our umbrella. Thank you to Naima Latif. And you guys, hey, don't go nowhere. We'll be right back after this.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the female solution.
And there you have it, the female solution. Sisters coming every single day of the week to bring you some energy that mainstream media does not. So always tune in, 7 a.m. Central Time. And for you Eastern folks, of course, 8 a.m. And hey, go to the female solution right on Facebook or YouTube. But baby, before we begin, I want to share with you just a little bit of the excellence that we're dealing with today. So check this out. Indeed, that's what you see. That's who we'll be dealing with today, and I'm so happy. I want to bring to the table none other than my lovely girl, my lovely woman, Rakina White. How are you, beautiful?
I am great. I am blessed. Happy to be here. Good morning, Asata and everyone.
Let me tell you, I'm so happy to have you because I have a strong affinity for the continent, as you see with my hair wraps and all that. I know in my veins that this is where I come from. People be trying to talk about we ain't from Africa and whatever. I'm gonna let you do that. I'm gonna let you talk about what you talking about. But you know, Africa, when you go, you can clearly see some things that really are helpful in our developmental process, because if you Black in America, there's some myths that you definitely have been privy to growing up. So before we get into all of that, I want to first ask, are you a Chicago native, honey?
I absolutely am. Born and raised. K-Town were my beginnings. On the west side and later on the south side, various neighborhoods. When people ask me what part of Chicago I'm from, I never have a clear answer because I've lived all over Chicago, including the north side. So
I love it.
Yes, I still claim Chicago as my beginnings, as my home.
Sure. Look, I love that. Chicagoans have great nationalism, I call it, because Chicagoans love Chicago, period. And I just find there's a different fiber of a Black person here that is steeped in African culture, even from the look and the dance on the dance scene. Like when you see them brothers hold each other's arms and start weighing and swaying together. And I'll be like, oh, wait a minute. This is kind of tribal right now. This is beautiful. And I just love it. So I want to get into
Absolutely.
your dynamic book. Just take a look, y'all. Nyumbani. Nyumbani means home in Swahili. What in the world made you even focus on Africa? Like, why? Why Africa?
Okay, so I took my first trip to Africa, which was to Ghana, at the age of 15. So
Mm,
I was living in Chicago. As an adolescent, we are looking for who we are, where do I belong, searching for identity. That's part of our development as adolescents. And so in Chicago, I was around a group of people that had similar search, for identity. And yet we were steeped in African culture, in Black movement, Black arts movement at the time in Chicago. We were learning about Africa. We were learning also that what we were taught previously, I know I was taught in school that you don't want to associate yourself with Africa. It's the dark continent, it's backward. But, as a teenager, I started reading on my own. I started reading with other people in community and, was very curious and interested in Africa. So there were two brothers, they were actually biological brothers from Ghana, that organized a charter flight to Ghana. This was in 1973. I was 15, so y'all know how old I am now. And it was $425 round trip, if you can believe that. It's now about 4 times that. So
wow.
still, as a 15-year-old, that was a lot of money. I was in high school.
Mhm.
I didn't have a job. So I was making jewelry, earrings, necklaces, bracelets, and selling them in art fairs in Chicago. So I was able to raise that money for that
Okay.
first trip. So once I took that first trip, that was it. I
Wow.
as a teenager, because we moved around a lot in my family, there were a lot of things happening in my family, in my home. There was domestic violence. I was
Okay.
struggling on many levels as a teenager. And
Okay.
so and because we moved a lot, I never really felt like I belonged anywhere. So, but
Interesting.
when I took that trip to Africa, Ghana, it was like, this is where I belong. I felt
I love that.
connected. It was transformative for me. And though I didn't take another trip until years later, I was determined and remained determined throughout my life to keep going back.
I love that you went so young and
Right.
was able to, because those are formative years, right? You got
Mhm.
when you little in some of those formative years, but those teen years is when you're really coming into adulthood and
Right.
you're making decisions like an adult, even though people treating you like a child. You
Mhm.
really can start looking and see that's American. America prolongs adolescence. But when
Mhm.
you go to the continent and you see comparable teens, what? They grown.
Right.
They're
Right.
not like grown with their own home, but they are taking care of the family, taking care of the baby, like uh just different. It's a different reality. And so I'm so happy that you went early in life. And so I want to deal with and there's so many aspects of this. Let's first kind of deal with your you said your upbringing had some tumultuous whatever, but was Africa a part of that consciousness at all in your family? Because you still had to want to go, even though you went young, you still had to want to go to Africa because we, like you said, we got so many myths about they gonna eat you, they don't wash you, nonsense, but you still went. So what was that? Was it
Your
something
family?
innate?
Okay. I don't know what happened. Not my immediate family, except my sister. Some people know my sister. Her name is Oroki, Mama Oroki. And Mama Oroki, she's 4 years my senior. And she encouraged a lot of my consciousness, movement, Black consciousness, even African consciousness as we were growing up. She dated a Black Panther. And she encouraged me to go to a high school that allowed me to have kind of open-minded thinking. And that was the Chicago Public High School for Metropolitan Studies. This high school no longer exists, but at that time, which was in the early 70s, it was called the School Without Walls. It was an alternative high school in a different way, because it wasn't like alternative high schools today.
Okay.
So School Without Walls, because we came to a central location, we got bus tokens, and then we had classes all over the city. We
Okay.
called our teachers by their first name. As students,
Mm.
we were able to teach classes. It was just a
Wow.
whole different vibe. And
Wow.
that really helped me to actually, there were two teachers at my school who at the time also took African names, just like I did. And all of this was part of that development. So I would say, in answer to your question, it was my sister and it was my environment, friends at school and friends also in the community in Chicago that influenced that.
That's excellent because it has we got what's in our veins and so the innately you just feel a calling.
Mhm.
But this man, I just love that you did it and you went. And so when you went, you had
Mhm.
certain experiences and you didn't just go to one country. How many countries did you visit?
So over the course of about 50 years, and this is what is in my book, there were 12 countries. But that first trip to Ghana was in 1973. I did
Mm,
not go back, even though I wanted to. My goal was I wanted to go to the University of Ghana. I wanted to
okay.
be a
Wow.
teacher. And that was my goal after that first trip. Well, life happened. I had a child at 18, so I was a teen mom. I was still dealing, before I had my child, I was dealing with that home with the domestic violence. I went through a lot. And so, even though I wanted to go sooner, I wasn't able to go back until 1987. And that second trip to Africa, which you'll read about if you get my book, Yumbani, was to Libya. There's a whole chapter on Libya in the book. But there were 12 countries in total.
Wow, 12 countries. So that, y'all, let me tell you, I know y'all talking about the motherland and all that. Many people have not even been there, but there's no sort of homogeneous, just Africa. No, the countries have differences. And so this photo right here is dear to me because I was there myself. This is Gorée Island in Senegal, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Please talk about what Gorée Island is. So important.
So Gorée Island is in French, it's called the House of Slaves.
Hmm.
So I do not like, a lot of people refer to these as slave castles.
Right.
I don't like referring to them as slave castles because I don't think of a castle in that way, but these are places where Africans were taken from their villages, from their homes, and
Hmm.
kept in this horrible, house of horrors, more like
Mm.
it,
Right.
um, for until the big boats came to take them across the Atlantic. And these were our ancestors to the West, the Caribbean and the United States. So this is where, there was some, the conditions in these places were horrible. I don't think I have more pictures here, but there were rooms where those that rebelled were put in a special room, and there were rooms for babies and for men and women, and we were crammed into these small spaces with no light, no place to use the restroom. We were all just urinating and everything in these rooms. So they're really house of horrors. And when I went to Gorée, that place, I had visited the slave houses or houses of horrors in Ghana, but I strongly felt that my ancestors were there. When I went to Gore, I felt something that I didn't feel when I went to other places where they had these houses.
Yeah.
So they had to pull me out of there. I was weeping. It was very emotional.
Yes.
Gore was something. Yeah.
Well, I
Off the coast of Senegal, by the way.
absolutely. And back in 97, I had the opportunity to take 18 kids to Senegal from Chicago. So they were gangbangers and all that.
Yeah.
And it was just so profound because when we went to Goree Island, you want to talk about humility. I mean, one boy was in one of those chambers bawling, crying. He was just going, my mother, my father, my mother, my father. Like he was going back and forth crying.
Yes.
Another sister, young sister, just started singing. Um, I'm free, praise the Lord, I'm free, I'm no longer bound, ain't no chains holding me. Like these teenagers that are just like emoting in there. And so when you say you felt it, I'm telling y'all, something definitely you're in there. And so you have an image in this slide deck that I think is so important that I want to show. This in the middle here, this is the door of no return, correct?
That is called the door of no return, because once you went through that door, you wasn't returning, except
Right.
now we are going back. So
Yep.
I quote a brother that said to me recently, the door of no return was a lie
Uh-huh.
because we are going back. The door of no return meant you wasn't coming back. But
Right.
in the name of our ancestors and in honor of our ancestors, we are going back home. And we can talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely. What I do love when we were there, someone said that to us, and that really took us. That really took us out because they were like, "This is the door of no return." We took pictures and stood in it and all of that. But then they did say to us, "But you have returned," and that just really just took it to a whole nother level in terms of our appreciation of ourselves and seeing our place. We're not at a museum where we're looking at artifacts. We are part of this reality. And so love that you were there, had that experience. While we're on it, so you got to see that in Senegal. That was one of the countries. But then that first picture, where is that?
So that is in Tanzania. Some people say Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Tanzania is in East Africa. And
Mm-hmm.
so Tanzania was the first country in Africa that I actually lived in. I
Mm.
lived in Tanzania for just over a year. And so that picture is actually in Kilimanjaro Park. Some of you may have heard of Mount Kilimanjaro. Well, I didn't climb Mount Kilimanjaro. By that time, I wasn't 15 no more, and I wasn't physically fit enough to climb the mountain. But this picture was taken there's a park called Kilimanjaro Park. That journey to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, at least a week, if not longer. I mean, it takes a lot of fortitude, a lot of discipline to do that. But Tanzania is just a beautiful country. There are mountains everywhere. Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest one, but there are mountains everywhere. It's like a postcard everywhere you stand, everywhere you look. I
Wow.
love Tanzania.
Lovely. I love Tanzania. Now, Tanzania is where Swahili is spoken, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
It's
when we
one of
talk
the
about
official languages.
perfect,
English
because
and
y'all
Swahili.
look, y'all, if y'all know about Swahili, Swahili is not the language of the total continent of Africa. Okay, this is what it tell you. It is only in certain countries, Tanzania, Uganda as well. Correct.
Uganda, in some parts of Uganda, I had an argument with one of the people I was working with in Uganda, the program that I was working professionals, we'll get into this later, but most of the health professionals that I work with when I went to live in Africa and work in Africa were white. So
Mm-hmm.
in most instances, I was the one or maybe a couple of other Africans of African descent that were doing this work. But yeah, anyway, in Uganda, certain people will speak Kiswahili or
Yeah.
Swahili, but it's not widely spoken in
Okay.
Uganda.
Gotcha. Now, I have so many things, so many images that are reflections of your travel. Where exactly was this, and what are we looking at? Where were you?
Oh gosh, yeah, that picture means a lot. This was in Burkina Faso.
Mm-hmm.
In the year I went to Burkina Faso in 2011.
Okay.
And I'm actually going back to Burkina Faso later this month.
Yay.
Yay, yay, yay. I'm so excited. But when I went to Burkina Faso, one of the things that I knew I wanted to do was to visit the gravesite of Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara was a young president of Burkina Faso. He was young, he was dynamic, he was a revolutionary. He made a lot of positive changes in the country when he was president, but unfortunately, he was assassinated by someone in his own government. And that person later went on to become the president. So we know that there was also a lot of outside interference, as we've seen in many countries in Africa when they have those coups d'états or overthrowing of the government. So this was Thomas Sankara's grave. I understand now, and I'm very happy and excited to go back, that they have a much better gravesite for Thomas
Mm,
Sankara, but this was during the time that the other man was president.
mm,
And this, I was disappointed because it was near a garbage dump,
mm. Okay.
and you
Wow.
could smell the smells and everything, and all those other
Wow.
graves of people that were killed, that were in the government, that were killed alongside of him. So
Wow.
I look forward to going back and seeing how they have changed things, and now they have a statue and a more fitting site for this brother who was a really good president that did a lot for the country.
Excellent. Now, talk about the impact of your book. Why did you choose to put these African experiences in a book? And because you did all the traveling and decided to do the book, correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
yeah,
Actually, it
why?
was while I was traveling, once the first project that I did, big project that I did in Africa, because prior to the projects I was traveling, basically visiting friends, except in Libya. That was a different thing. But, I was visiting people that I knew in these places. I had a really close friend in the Gambia that passed away, and I wanted to visit the country that she was from. So it was, visiting, taking, many vacations, but actually, the Gambia was the first country that I did a project in. I was at the University of Wisconsin-Madison at the time, and I was doing a postgraduate program in global health. And one of the requirements was that we do a field experience. So I was able to find an organization, an NGO in the Gambia, that was started and run by a Gambian woman named Mam Yasin Sar, and in the village of Lamine, which is close to Banjul, the capital. So that was the first project that I did in Africa, and that was the first place that I stayed for an extended amount of time. In fact, I went back because I got a grant through the university to go back and continue that project that I started working on. So, what
Now,
was the? Go ahead.
yeah, look, I can ask a million questions. I'm like
Uh,
waiting for you to, tell these different aspects of your story.
mhm.
But yeah, but the book, how has the book been utilized by people that have bought it so far? Because you came out with this book in
Mhm.
what year? What year did
This
you
year.
come out with this book?
This year, just
This
recently.
year,
I
right?
came out with the book. The book just came out in August. So very, very
Oh
new.
my God, right.
And I just wanted to add to that answer. The thing that really
Please,
encouraged
please.
me to write this book was when I was traveling, starting with the Gambia trip. I started posting pictures of my travels, and people were responding to those pictures. People were like, oh, these are really nice pictures. And I was telling stories with the pictures, what the pictures were about. And people started saying, well, you should write a book. And that was really, it was people on social media that were encouraging me to write the book. And that was why I decided to go ahead and write the book. People would say things like, oh, I didn't know they had houses like that in Africa. When I lived in Tanzania, I had a beautiful apartment, balcony, beautiful view, and people, didn't know. People were like, oh, that's Africa, because people have their own preconceived notions of what Africa is supposed to look like. And what I was
That's right.
sharing was not that.
Absolutely. When I went, um, I was probably first of all in our group. We went with a group of 40 people to the continent, and
Mhm.
um, I was probably the only one wearing African clothes. Everybody was wearing whatever, but we had so many experiences. We went to the club. We was doing a line dancing in the club. The girls were gorgeous. Like my brother stayed another 2 weeks and didn't come back with us because the life there was so free. And what you
Mhm.
didn't feel is how in America you feel a police state. You feel a
Right.
control that you do not
Mhm.
feel when you're in Africa, and when you're surrounded
Absolutely.
by your people. It's just so different. And so,
Mhm.
there's some other places I want to show of your experience that I want you to explain. Let's see a little bit of
Yeah,
where
I
are
just want to add to that, that,
please.
people, when people plan to go to Africa, people always ask, family members will ask me, or other people, I hear people asking them, oh, is that safe? You know, I felt safer living in Africa than I have in visiting Africa than I do in the United States. I've never felt, as you said, freer or safer. It is very safe.
Absolutely. It's a very different the principles are different. The trust level is different. Now, black people got game wherever they go. So there was oh, this is $20. I was like, girl, this ain't no $20. How much is this for real? And that type of thing. But you American to them coming there. So there's the camaraderie, but then there's also we got these tourists coming in and just life and living. But once you really are like we went to a village called Kunun that was I think in right near Gambia in Senegal. But the oh my God, the reception that we received. We're going to show some pictures of you and others. I'm like, you cannot tell that she looked like she right from there, period, on the continent, because you got on the regalia, you looking wonderful. What is this picture? Before we go to a commercial break, what are we
Mhm.
looking at here, and what country was this?
So this was in the Gambia, and this is in Jufere, which is
Okay.
where, if any of you watched the movie or read the book Roots, this is the village of Kunta Kinte. This is a real place, and this is where Kunta Kinte came from. And I was standing there in the village of Kunta Kinte. Yes, in that outfit I actually had made in Mali, because that year I traveled to Mali, the Gambia, and Burkina Faso. That was in 2011. And yeah, that outfit is from Mali. But yes, people would come up to me and start speaking in Fula. And it was only after I took that trip that I did my ancestry through AfricanAncestry.com. And it
Mm-hmm.
was turned up Fula and Malinke. And my
Wow.
friends, I have a lot of friends that are Fula, and they said to me, why did you waste your money? We already told you. Because people would always tell me that I looked like a Fulani person. So
Ab-
yes.
Absolutely, girl. When we see those pictures, it's like, wait a minute, let me find where she is, because everybody, She's blending right in, no questions asked. You guys, you're tuned into Gathering of the Griots with your host, Asada. Today, we're talking to Adrian Rakina White, who is the author of Yumbani, and it is a memoir of her travels in Africa. Love it. First-hand accounts. Let's take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll get a little bit more of what's in store in this book and her travels. Stay tuned.
Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair.
Hey family, this is Charles Humphrey of MCH Publishing, and I'm here with Asada, and we at the Soulful Chicago Book what?
This is the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair, slamming.
We getting down in Hyde Park. Just run it down, my sister. Just tell us, for the people, a little bit about what we're doing here today and why.
You know, this is the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair, and this month is very important. I feel like we don't give it the type of recognition that it needs, but beyond that, I do all things literary, and we have so many ancestors that have taken a tradition of writing and done great things. Well, we have those of us that are carrying on that tradition, and nobody knows about them until now. So the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair is allowing us to tell our stories according to ourselves for our own benefit. And it's just beautiful. I mean, she could have been here today if you wasn't here, but if you were, it's been amazing. People came in consistently, children, and we have children's authors, we have nonfiction authors, we have fiction authors. This is really good, and it's about taking our own power in our own hands and doing what we do on the literary tip, though.
Right.
I gotta work, but I can't help it. Everything going to school. Not just about bring my African shit like this. Bring in the African shit.
I love it. You guys, the Black History Book Fair is being registered for right now. All you have to do is go to the website at the bottom of the page, soulfulchicagobookfair.com, and you will see a place to register. Or better yet, if you're an author, just go to author submission first. I don't want your money. I need you to register first. Go to author submission and go ahead and get your book approved. That'll be February 15th. That's a Sunday. The places to be announced coming soon, because we got some places like we want it. So we'll see what neighborhood that we end up in. But go to the website and you'll get information on that. But today, if you're here, you are going to enjoy the lovely interview we have with none other than Adrian Rakina White, bringing her back to the stage. You've been sharing such great experiences with us. And my girl says she was at Kunta Kante's village, and that it's real. And so I really thank you for sharing that with us. You had so many other places that you went. I want to bring up a couple others, and then I want to get into the why you were there, because you have some dynamic pictures with others. Now, what are some of these places?
So again, both of these pictures are Tanzania. So the picture on the left it's in Arusha, Tanzania, which Tanzania is a big country. When I was there, I lived in Dodoma, which is the capital. I used to think Dar es Salaam was the capital, but it's Dodoma, which is centrally located. But I took a trip to Arusha, and this was at I don't know if it's a museum or what it was, but people still love in Tanzania. People still love Julius Nyerere. Nyerere was the first president of Tanzania, and he was a Pan-Africanist. And this is and on the right, this is actually in Dar es Salaam, because Dar es Salaam is it's a commercial capital of Tanzania. It's a big city, and it's right on the Indian Ocean to the east. So that is a picture of me on the beach by the Indian Ocean. It was my first time seeing the Indian Ocean. I've seen the Atlantic, the Pacific, and now this was the Indian Ocean.
Man, I love that. Who even thinks of that? Seeing the oceans of the world, right? Like you said, we've seen Atlantic, came across the Atlantic and all of that, but the Indian Ocean, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about Africa is that when you go to these coastal countries, I remember my students saying, what this is paradise. It's beaches, it's palm trees, it's different types of birds. And so you look so joyful there, so awesome. You really I love that you put these experiences in a book. Now, what were you trying to achieve with writing the book? And I want you to talk about that in the middle, but before that, these statues, I have to say this, when you go to Africa and see these powerful statues of our people, it's like, this is not a reality. Here in Chicago, Dusabo founded the city, but he got a bus like this big downtown and he founded the city. So talk a little bit about the importance of these statues and where they were.
Right. So the one on the left, that's me again on Goree Island. And the statue is about breaking free from the chains. You see the brother, he's like breaking free, and with a woman beside him. It's like, we're not going to be slaves. We are breaking free from this thing, and fitting that it would be right on Goree Island. The
That's
other
right.
picture is in Mali. So Mali is also a country in West Africa, and the first president of Mali, his name was Modiba Keita, Keita. And this was one of my favorite places to visit in Mali because they had a museum honoring this man.
Nice.
He was the first president, and he was also a Pan-Africanist, just like what you see happening in the Sahel now with Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso, president of Mali, and the president of Niger. They formed an alliance. Well, in the 1960s, it was Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah, Mali under Modiba Keita, and Guinea under Sekou Touré. So, when I was going to Mali, just like I needed to see the grave of Thomas Sankara, when I was going to Mali, I don't know where he's buried, honestly, Modiba Keita, but going to the museum, and I went to the museum with an elder. It was the father of my friend. This is a family that embraced me, that told me, you Fulani, you part of us, the Sangare was the last name, you're a Sangare and everything. And, the elder was just so happy to take me to this museum and show me the history of Modiba Keita and, the revolution, the independence struggle and independence in Mali.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for, I don't even know, what would your mind be like with all these experiences? I'm loving that you have them. I'm loving that you're running down that history. What Sekou Touré, Kwame Nkrumah, like that, it's part of your whole makeup. Now there's an existence that you had on the continent with tons of young people. Tell us a little bit about, what are we looking at here and these lovely girls? What was this about?
So again, that is my first experience of, actually, this was when I was doing that global health program. And this organization is called Starfish International. And it's an organization that helps adolescent girls. And now I think they've expanded to include boys programs too, to have access to education. So in this village, I was working with adolescent girls who were peer health educators. This was it could have been 2014 into 2015. I went twice to work with this group. And so this is a picture of me and all the peer health educators in the Gambia. Now, I know that at least one of these young sisters is a physician now, and all of them have gone on to have professions, many of them as health professionals and other professions. So I'm so proud. And, I haven't been back since about 2016, but, they're all grown up women now and doing amazing things.
I love that. See that? Look, guys, you can take charge of your purpose on this planet and make it about more than just yourself, and let it, what you do, trickle onto others so that you can create the effect that you want. Now look at all these young people. Look at myself selfies on the continent. What was this
Yes.
group about?
Yes. So then this was, my dream since that first trip to Ghana was to go and stay and, serve in some way to help be a productive member of society on the continent of Africa. That was my dream since I went that first time at the age of 15. As I said, I wanted to go to university. I wanted to be a teacher. I ended up in my profession being a nurse and later a nurse practitioner. But this was my dream come true. This was my first trip where I actually was working on the continent. I was teaching. These are all nursing students. And it's interesting because
Wow.
classes in Africa are at least half male, if not predominantly male. Like even there was a
Wow.
midwifery class and they were mostly young men,
Wow.
These are my babies, my students. Love them like my children, and I believe that they love me in the same way,
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, I
You can
mean,
see it.
most of the health professionals were white,
Okay.
so me as a black person, it was a little bit unusual for them to see a black person coming because most of the, this program was for physicians and nurses, and
Yes.
most of the people did not look like them.
I
I mean, they were
love that you were
sincere
there.
in wanting to provide service, but I was there. I felt like I was a part of them. In fact, that outfit that I'm wearing, the
Yes.
students bought the material,
Wow.
had me measured at the tailor, and that was a gift from the students, and they gave me
Mm,
that gift. I'm giving a little spoiler now.
come on.
My one of my aunts passed away while I was living in Tanzania, and she was my an aunt that I was close to growing up, and I couldn't go, for the funeral. And so the students, I didn't even tell the students, I told one of the faculty members, and she shared it with the students. And I came to class one day and the students had all kind of gifts that they had collected for me. They made a statement, giving their condolences and everything. I was really
Wow.
touched.
Wow. When students love you. That's like such a validating point when you create joy in your students. You got a comment here from To Uplift Life, says Starfish International. Is that familiar to you? Starfish
Yes,
International?
Starfish International is the organization that I work with in the Gambia. Yes,
Nice. See, look at that.
powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for
Mhm.
coming and tuning in. People tune into this show from all over the world, so I'm so hype and happy about that. We got some more beautiful photos of you and these young people. Talk a little bit about this, and if you are just tuning in, I want you to take heed to the website for the book. So MayaMariama.com is where you get her book, Yombani. And it's a memoir of all of Rakina's travels to the continent. She got more coming up. So that means a second book is coming at some point. But talk a
Mhm.
little bit about this image. Are you teaching more nursing students here as well?
Yes, these were the peer health educators again. And these girls ranged in age from 13 to the oldest was 19. The average age was about 16. And
Wow.
these girls were amazing. This picture is we were talking about because my specialty is women's health. So I'm a women's health
Okay.
nurse practitioner. So we were
Okay.
talking about the female reproductive system.
Okay.
And these girls were just amazing. And we did our classes. I developed the curriculum,
Mm,
and their goal was to share this information with others So they had, after I left, they had what is called a bantaba, which is literally, it's a Mandinka word that means coming together under a big tree.
Wow.
So they had a bantaba and people came and people asked questions. Granted, these are topics that are not typically talked about. In fact, one sister told me how it's when a woman gets married, part of the, premarital ceremonies is to have an elder tell you everything about female reproduction, about sex, like in,
Okay.
a night or, a day. And you never
Okay.
heard about it before that. And so you're embarrassed
Wow.
because, it was like taboo to talk about those things
Sure.
before.
Sure.
So, talking about these things, the girls really welcomed it. They had lots of questions. They were kind of shy in the beginning, but afterward, I asked them, one of the activities was I asked them early on about their favorite body part. And I was
Mm.
so surprised when they came, they were talking about their breasts, their vaginas, and these were the poems that the girls wrote. So, yeah, the
Wow.
girls were I was, when I was at Starfish, I was in tears practically throughout the whole time because, the
Yeah.
warm welcome and the girls' levels of maturity of these girls. This
Mm.
was,
Mm.
it was sort of like a vision board. This was one activity that they did towards the end.
I love this. And look at those smiles, baby. Let me show that again. Look at those smiles of them babies. That's how you know you've made the impact because they are just in it. And let me tell you, you go to Africa, there's going to be millions of children. It's just millions of children everywhere. And their aptitude and their ability to create and their ability to connect to you, I find wonderful. So, I mean, you can see that in those pictures. And I love that you were sharing that part of life with them. So important, the role you've played. Now, is this this is during COVID, correct?
Yes, this is during COVID. So this was in Uganda. So I was in Uganda at the beginning of the pandemic. I went to
Okay.
Uganda in January of 2020, and I was actually evacuated from Uganda in March of 2020 because of COVID, not because I was sick, but because the organization that I was working for at the time, which is a US-based organization, felt that they should bring us back to the United States. So I can't remember if this was before or after the pandemic, because after I was evacuated, I stayed in the US, worked remotely with the organization up until October of 2020 when I went back. And it was still obviously during the height of the COVID pandemic. So I was invited to speak in a classroom about careers in the health professions to a group of students in Uganda. So that was me talking to those young people in Uganda. And in this classroom, people, like I said, they haven't seen many African Americans. So they were really surprised. They didn't think that I was from America, and they were questioning whether I was born in America because most of the people that come, especially I was in Uganda in a region called the West Nile region, which is in the northwestern part of the country. And not many people go to that area. Most people go to the capital. So these students were a little bit confused because here I'm a Black person talking to them, looking like them, but from the United States.
Love that, baby. That's right. Set the example. Now, you told me to make sure you talk about Patricia Rodney. Give the significance
Yes.
of Patricia Rodney and who that is.
Yes. Well, I have a lot of people to thank for supporting me through this process of writing this book. And Sister Dr. Patricia Rodney is one of them. So the last name Rodney may sound familiar to some of you because Patricia Rodney, is the widow of Walter Rodney. Walter Rodney was a historian who was born in Guyana. He wrote many books, but the one that is very popular that a lot of you may have heard about is How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. So I met Dr. Patricia Rodney here in Atlanta, which is where I'm living currently, and asked her if she would assist me, if she would read the book and maybe give some comments, write a blurb. And she agreed to do that. And
Wonderful.
she gave me some suggestions. The last chapter of the book, I really attribute to Dr. Rodney because she made some suggestions on how I could end it better and more impactfully. So I changed the last chapter. And, I just really appreciate her. She's a busy woman. Every year she hosts the Walter Rodney Symposium in honor of her late husband here in Atlanta. And, she's a busy, I was just honored when she agreed to, read the book, make comments, kind of mentor me through the process. So I'm extremely grateful to her. And
Nice.
there are other people that assisted. Lori DePreet Brown, she was one of my professors at the Global Health Institute at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dr. Saba Sankana, who is a publisher of his publishing book company is called Karnak House in London.
Okay.
He edited, actually, was one of the first editors. He assisted me. And Dr. Usman Ba, who is from Senegal. Some of you may know him and his wife, Phyllis or Denise. Phyllis is from Chicago and their children are in Chicago. And yeah, so he also read the book and wrote a blurb. And lastly, Pa and Kim Juf were my first beta readers. They are from Chicago, and they also were able to assist and give comments and help me to make it a better book. So I'm very grateful to them, and of course to the ancestors, because without my ancestors I wouldn't have been able to do anything. My ancestors survived.
That's right.
They were taken through that door of no return, but
Right.
they survived. There were a
That's
lot
right.
of us, a lot of people that did not survive.
That's
So
right. A lot of
grateful.
people that jumped ship, baby, but we are the descendants of the ones who stayed and persevered through the turmoil. So that's like a whole different type of makeup of who we are. And you guys, if you're watching, if you're just tuning in, we are talking to my girl, Rakina White, who did this wonderful book. It's an African travel memoir, Nyombani. And I want to look at some of the beautiful photos of all of the relationships that you have, because there's so many pictures. Girl, you got to go make sure you get them laid on out on social media so people could really just go through them. But I want to just take a minute to look at some of them and their significance in your travels. Let me just bring them on up, and I'm going to go through them, and you can stop me when you feel like, oh, I want to talk about
Okay,
that.
I want to talk about this picture, this first
Okay.
picture. That is Mama C. So Mama C, Charlotte O'Neill. She is the wife of Pete O'Neill, who was a Black Panther, is a Black Panther. They live in Tanzania in a village called Mbaseni outside of Arusha. So if you read the story, I actually saw a PBS documentary called A Panther in Africa. And that was where Pete O'Neill and his wife were featured. And I said, if I go to Tanzania, I want to visit them. So he was a Black Panther that, just like all of you are hearing about Asata, she escaped from prison. She recently passed away. Well, Brother Pete O'Neill was in Kansas City and he escaped. He wasn't in prison, but he was, they were about to put him in jail. And he is still, to this day, living in exile in Tanzania. And they built a beautiful community. That's Mama C in the middle. And on the other side of her is Pindo. Pindo is one of the faculty at the University of Dodoma, which is where I was teaching nursing students. And she was, such a good friend and helper to me. And her son, Joshua, is on the other side of me. So we were in Arusha.
Nice.
The other picture is in Senegal. And that is actually, she was married to what's his name? Artie Arma, the writer. The Beautiful Ones Are
Wow.
Not Yet Born. And what's the other book? I can't remember. It's escaping me. But anyway, she's a writer. She had me at her house. You can continue with the pictures because I
Wow,
know we're
no problem. I mean, girls, there are so many that we can see of you and groups of people. I mean, there is no shortage of our people. You go to Africa and you just surrounded by family. Look at you in this picture. I was like, where's she at? I mean, I don't know which one's that,
right.
because you definitely
It
were
was his
killing.
87th birthday. This was family,
Ah,
this is the Juf family. So some of you may know Pa Juf in Chicago, and that's his dad. He's passed away now,
wow.
but that's his dad. And when I arrived, he was having his 87th birthday. And I was, with all the folks, all the family folks in that picture. So
Man,
yes.
it's nothing like seeing people from America in Africa. When I went to Senegal, my friends make a joke to say, no matter where I go, I know people, whatever. But when I was in Senegal, somebody called my name in the hotel. I was like, what? But it was my friend. There's a filmmaker, a Senegalese filmmaker. I want to say he's an Outsman, but I don't think that's his name. But nonetheless, you know who I'm talking about?
I think that's who you mean.
Say that name again.
Simbene, Usman Simbene.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I
Yes.
thought it was that, but definitely.
Yes.
So
Yes. He's
his
one of my
wife
favorite
at the time.
filmmakers. Yes.
Yeah. His wife at the time is my friend we went to Northwestern together. My friend Inde, her
Yes.
family. And so here are just more
Mhm.
pictures of you, so many people, experiences. I just love seeing this and looking at, I know each picture has massive significance with, who you're
Yes,
sitting
that
with.
picture on the left, that's one of my favorite pictures. That was in Mali, and that's my mom in Mali, my friend's mother.
Okay.
And she's still, this was in 2011. She's my elder. She's still doing well. She's in Mali. Yes,
Love it.
I love that
Love
picture.
it. Yeah, no doubt about it. And then how would you say, as we come to a close, how would you say you morphed from these experiences? How has these experiences added to your character?
Well, I think, from my mom, I always knew the benefits of service, but service in Africa, it was just so rewarding. It's like immediate gratification. When I was teaching nursing students or when I was teaching those girls in the Gambia, the rewards for me from teaching them and also me learning from them, just make sure, I would say, when you're going to Africa, know that there's a lot of talent and a lot of skills, especially among the young people, and we can learn a lot from them. So it's rewarding for me to know that I was able to contribute something, even, if it's small, I was able to contribute something. So that just made me want to keep going and going and going, really. And just, learning that Africa is diverse. East Africa was a little bit different from West Africa, and within each country there are differences, so it's not all the same. When I was in Zambia, that's another country I didn't talk about, I had to buy a winter coat because I was cold. Some places are cold, and Africa is not hot all over.
Right.
So yeah, and just, I would just encourage you to go to Africa, go to Africa. Don't be afraid. Don't believe all the things that you heard. If you go to my website, Maya Mariama, I have under blogs are practical tips for visiting Africa. So please go. Nice. My website is a work in progress. I'm going to be adding pictures and I'm going to be blogging. I mentioned earlier that I'm going to Burkina Faso in a couple of weeks. I'll be in Africa through January, actually, in West Africa mostly this time. Nice. Hope to add at least one more country to the 12 during that time. So yes, go to Africa. Don't be afraid. Get your passport. That's the first step. If you don't have your passport, get it now. Don't wait until you're traveling, because that trip to Libya, if I didn't have my passport at the time, I wouldn't have been able to go because it was a quick, you want to go? Sure, I'll go.
Yeah.
So passport Don't wait until you have to have it, and then you have to
That's
expedite
right.
and all that.
Mm.
So
Thank you so much. Our hour is already up. How did that happen? There seems
yeah,
like we so much more we can talk about, but thank you so much for coming here today, Rakina. I appreciate you so much for setting the example of what it means to go to Africa and just be yourself as a Black person, learning about your background, the stuff that they don't teach you in school. Go experience it for yourself, and don't wait. You don't got to wait till you're over the 50 like myself. You could be 15 like you were. And so you guys, for tuning in, I want to thank you. This has been another excellent example of a show that we love for Gathering of the Griots. I will see you all next Tuesday, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. And again, thank you so much, Rakina, for being here and for setting the example for us. We're going to follow you though,
thank
to the
you,
content for
Asada.
sure.
Again, thank you for all that you continue to do. So, and thank you all for listening.
No doubt. Have a good day, guys. Let's close out with our female solution message.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.